Welcome back to the show. Here's a story that sparked a lot of controversy over the weekend. Former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg has backtracked on stop and frisk, a policy he implemented that led to aggressive and disproportionate policing for the city's black and brown residents. He made the comments in a black megachurch in Brooklyn on Sunday. Here's the apology. Listen.
I now see that we could and should have acted sooner and acted faster to cut the stops. I wish we had. I'm sorry that we didn't. But I can't change history. However, today, I want you to know that I realized back then I was wrong.
So this reaction tweet from a New York-based attorney speaks for many. It says, I can't begin to tell you how many of my black clients have come close to or lost their jobs because they were stopped, frisked, and arrested and had to appear in court over minor offenses. Bloomberg owes them far more than an apology. So Bloomberg was mayor of New York City for 12 years. While he was in office, millions of black and brown youth, 70% of whom were innocent, were harassed by the police. So Charles, how do you adequately apologize for this form of prolonged and racist policing?
Let me tell you something.
Please.
This entire situation is white privilege wrapped up in a bow and put on display. The fact that he can go into a black church
Disrespectful.
and have a conversation or purport to have a conversation where he offers this, I can't change history, we here now, so vote for me type of apology is as laughable as it is offensive, right? For someone in his position not to recognize the enormous degree of privilege that he holds in terms of being able to say, well, I was wrong about that, without simultaneously acknowledging, as that tweet sort of alluded to, the myriad numbers of lives that were disrupted, if not thrown off course, if not destroyed, because of stop and frisk and what it did to law enforcement in this city is just an aberration. For those viewers who may not know, stop and frisk was oftentimes used as a sort of gateway for other stops. It's ultimately how Khalif Browder ended up in jail, right, for a crime that he likely did not commit, and so, and as well as countless others whose names we will not ever know. And so this was a policy that was deeply harmful and destructive to our community. And so that sort of apology just really doesn't even scratch the surface. If he is serious or wants us to even consider him as serious in terms of making amends to our community, we need to see how that privilege gets put into action around what are you going to really do to make amends? Because saying I'm sorry in the middle of a black church in 2019 doesn't do it. When there are folks who are still recovering from the effects of what stop and frisk did, not only to that community, but also to the atmosphere and the mindset of law enforcement in New York. It gave them a free pass. Yeah. A free pass that's still problematic for us. So all of those things, I need to hear what's your plan around that, bro, in terms of fixing that, if you really want us to take you seriously.
And Joseph, you're a black man, grew up in New York City. I know you've been affected by this. Virtually every black man has. Do you accept the apology?
Hell no. And I'm going to say that because you just don't get to stroll into a black church on a Sunday and apologize a couple of weeks after it's announced that you may be running for president. It doesn't work like that. We're not that easy to get over on. And I think that there's a part of this that Michael Bloomberg is not paying attention to. And it's the emotional trauma that people experience with this. For years, my mother had to coach me on when leaving the house. Turn your hat forward. Don't wear this. Don't wear that. Keep your music down. Hands 10 and 12. And there's trauma that lingers on as you move on and grow into the adult stages of your life, where, in my opinion, I feel like a lot of black men are scared as hell of police now because of those same tactics. And you just can't undo something like that by strolling into a black church and saying, I'm sorry. It takes far more than that. There's a lot of damage that has been done. There is a perception, I think, in society that they have on black men because of things like stop and frisk and seeing men in handcuffs posted up on the side of buildings and things like that. It's just, I think that Michael Bloomberg needs to really look back at the damage that stop and frisk has caused and how it's going to take more than an apology to actually move on and grow from this.
And Shaina, I don't know about you, but I am sick and tired of leaders who have done our community wrong thinking that they can just walk into a black church, be flanked by a couple of black pastors, and everything's all good.
Right. And to me, that apology is empty without any action. So that's cute, you apologize, but what are you doing? What congressmen are you working with? What legislators are you working with to kind of rectify those wrongs? I mentor at Rikers Island every Saturday. And out of the 2 years that I've been going there, I've seen 2 white kids. I work with the 18 and 21-year-olds. 2 white kids out of hundreds of kids that I see. So you mean to tell me that white kids don't commit any crimes? It's only black kids? So...
And to your last point, I think it's really important that we as a community understand that we need to make sure that we're vetting and checking our gatekeepers as well, right? Because in order for him to stroll into that church, in order for him to have had that platform, somebody had to open that door, right? And so the question also becomes, who is opening those doors and allowing these platforms, these spaces for these apologists to sort of come forward and make these half-baked appeals to our community, and why they are doing it. There's a part of this conversation that a lot of us may not really be ready to talk about, and that's the fact that when Michael Bloomberg was mayor, there were a number of clergy people, influential clergy folks, and institutional leaders in the city who were not as vocal about the damage that Stop and Frisk was causing as they should have been. And now that these same folks are so lenient and willing and amenable to opening their doors to him, it should raise eyebrows in terms of who we're allowing to give platforms to in our community, because that's very, very important that we as a community sort of don't necessarily just give entree to anyone who wants to come and offer these apologies after they've done us wrong.
And I cannot overemphasize the timing of this before a potential run for president. Is this something that black people will accept and forgive?
I'm sure many will. I'm sure many will.
us.
That let's not hide away from the fact that there are going to be black people who benefit from Michael Bloomberg being in office. I think that people with open arms will accept his apology, and it doesn't surprise me. But people need to hold Michael Bloomberg accountable, and this shouldn't be that easy. It is not that easy, in my opinion, to just go in, apologize for something that caused many, many years of trauma, caused many years of damage, and just say, I'm sorry. It doesn't work like that, and it's a slap in the face, in my opinion.
I want to be clear about this because I can't overstate this point. It might offend some people, but it's true. When he was mayor, Michael Bloomberg was anti-black as fuck. Period. Like, there's no way of getting around it. There's no way of saying that. And so even as he addresses this individual policy, right, he approached his governance of this city with a mindset that was very anti our community. And that's not something that you just change, which is why a much greater, a much deeper conversation is needed than to say, I was wrong about this very discrete issue of policing, right? Because now, if you even entertain him on a larger level, it gives him way too much wiggle room to maintain many of the anti-black positions and ideologies that govern his time as mayor. So, this is not just about Stop and Frisk. I mean, granted, the timing is obvious in terms of it being sort of, moving toward his presidential candidacy. But if we're really going to even approach Michael Bloomberg with any modicum of seriousness, it has to be with an understanding that, like, where you come from, your sort of thought process has to be re-examined and discussed and unpacked.
And to even piggyback off that, like, a lot of people don't realize that the powers that be in New York is seen as this big liberal, well, really just New York City, this big liberal city, right? But people don't realize that a lot of, especially the white powers that be in New York, come from that same world as Bloomberg and as Donald Trump. Like, a lot of them are moderate Republicans who are Democrat on paper, but they're all part of the 1%. They all have specific agendas, and they are all anti-black. Like, let's be realistic about this. And now, we do have this, like, newer crop of younger, just political leaders that are coming in. But like you were saying, there's a lot more that needs to happen that goes beyond just like I'm sorry.
Well, I think it's ridiculous that Bloomberg thinks he can buy the black vote with a half-assed apology. We all heard him say sorry, but what I did not hear is a solid plan or program that would right the wrongs of his administration.